Welcome to the Art of Disability Culture. My name is Fran Osborne. I am the guest curator for the show, and I'm here at the wonderful Palo Alto Art Center, where people exhibit art, they make it, and they discuss it. The exhibition runs from September the 11th to December the 11th and features work by a varied group of 20 artists, all with a range of disabilities, who are either Bay Area based or who have strong connections here. The show is for everyone, however, and hopefully you will all return more than once to ponder and reflect. As the final touches were being added, I began to realize that this exhibition couldn't be better timed. The work is full of a joyful complexity that mirrors how everyone may be dealing with the current challenges. We're all trying to understand recent events, the climate crisis, the pandemic, and the future, while we also try and find moments of joy. It's not an exaggeration to say that people with disabilities face existential threats every day, and that those with long COVID are finding out how the virus will change their lives. Some of the work here was created as a response to those threats and to this ongoing sense of chaos. Maybe the exhibition will provide a way through and a safe place to rest and recharge. Everything about the show celebrates both the reality of the disability experience and disability pride, from the use of QR codes for audio descriptions recorded by the artists themselves to the invitation to walk the Labyrinth, created by blind interdisciplinary artist Maya Scott. Each work asks us to rethink and reframe what we think we know about artists and art, how we engage with artworks, and how much deeper we can go if we don't rely on sight alone to engage with the work. The exhibition is also about looking, seeing, and being seen. You'll find many portraits and several self-portraits in the show that represent disability as a fact of life. Some of the works provoke us to hold the gaze of the artist, to linger, and to interact. And very often, disability stories create a skewed narrative about bad attitudes and overcoming obstacles, when what is most required is an acceptance and acknowledgement that disabled people are here and want to get on with their lives without being a prop for someone else's pity or charity. In a sense, this work is a demand for more authentic inclusion and a bold statement that our society functions so much better when disabled people are included, are seen and listened to. Welcoming everyone into the Art Center is a life-size juvenile elephant and egret by local Palo Alto artist Mattis Lamb. It's 6 feet high and about 7 feet long and stands on a shiny black platform. Mattis is autistic and has been making art here at the Art Center and with Ability Path for a long time. He was commissioned to create a piece for the entrance lobby here and decided to make an elephant sculpture using discarded materials over an inner framework. The legs are made of circles of toilet rolls stacked above each other, and they beautifully convey the character and strength of a juvenile elephant. The body is fashioned from chicken wire overlaid with the kind of pressed cardboard cup holders that coffee shops give out. The ears are made from those large pressed cardboard egg trays that are very common. And Mattis has a signature style when it comes to eyes. You might want to look at his ceramic animals on Instagram. Here he's followed his unique style by using transparent cylindrical containers for the eyeball itself that hold golf balls painted black for the pupils. The head and trunk are made from brown, crinkly packing paper, and the end of the trunk is from a black ridged extract hose. The trunk hangs down beautifully and uses the curve of the hose to suggest a friendly stance from the elephant. On the elephant's back is an egret made from aluminum foil, and Mattis teaches workshops on how to create animals from foil as well. Moving into the introductory space to the bigger gallery, we have the title for the show in black lettering at the top of the wall. Below that are 3 portraits by Bill Bruckner of his disabled friends and colleagues, and to the right is his self-portrait, which is almost life-size at 6 feet high by 3 foot wide. The portraits on the left are wonderful, but I'm going to talk specifically about the self-portrait. We see Bill, a slim, white, balding man with grey hair and round glasses, standing in front of us and smiling. He is bare-chested and has bare feet and wears only dark blue jeans. He has a short right arm and several fingers on his left side. Bill is a painter, and when I talked to him about this series of portraits, he told me that he did many self-portraits of all kinds so that he could be comfortable with himself in the studio and the process of looking carefully at a person. Sitting for your portrait can be an intense experience, and both artist and sitter must be at ease with so much looking and staring and gazing going on. As I'm sure you're beginning to understand, looking carefully is one of the threads that runs through the show. Moving into the large gallery spaces now, we have areas on the left and right for listening and viewing. And on the left, we have Chad Allen's audio comic, Unseen. Chad created his audio comic as a response to all the chaos and political shenanigans going on in the world. You have to listen carefully because this is an audio comic created by a blind person with a blind heroine for blind and sighted audiences. And the opening comments from Chad are as follows. Greetings, reader. I am Chad Allen, author of Unseen, and I happen to be blind. This is the story of a blind assassin from Afghanistan. She is strong, confident, and she is very, very good at what she does. Underestimating her is her enemy's gravest mistake. We're living in a challenging time, and as a person with a disability, my perspective is often excluded from the conversation. I hope you see the world a little differently after reading Unseen. Enjoy. On the right, we have two digital portraits by a young artist, Michaela Oteri, whose beautiful series of disability pride portraits are also on her Instagram page. This is Michaela's image description. A digital portrait depicting a fat white woman with blue-purple dyed hair pulled back into a ponytail. She is wearing a crop top that reads, "The future is accessible," and a black plaid skirt. She is holding a pen in her right hand while sitting in a wheelchair and holding a pair of forearm crutches. The background is a blue-purple and Art Nouveau inspired with vining purple wisteria flowers. We also really wanted to have Michaela's portrait of disability justice activist and youth organizer Stacy Milburn, who sadly passed away in 2020. Stacy made a huge impact everywhere and is incredibly well known for her work with Crip Camp, but also for spreading disability wisdom and joy in everything she did. Again, I'm using Michaela's image description. We have a large digital portrait, 38 inches high by 26 inches wide, depicting a mixed-race Asian American woman. She is sitting in a power wheelchair and has a trach. She is wearing a striped pink and purple shirt, glasses, jeans, and has short dark hair. Behind her is a ring of very large and vibrant flowers of different types, matching more in the upper corners. Nearby are ceramics by Don Katz, who describes himself as the blind potter. Don is an emerging artist, and I chatted recently with him and his teacher, and they described the ways that they are working together to develop his practice. They're experimenting with measuring tools and scented glazes so that Don can continue to experiment and learn. And they've also visited ceramic collections in museums and held ceramic work to understand its weight and construction. So there are many ways of learning a new skill and art, and touch is often an integral part of the learning process. Don's pieces all have a really satisfying weight and gravity, with a little whimsy thrown in. The strawberry basket is about 8 inches long and 4 inches wide and made up of woven strips of clay to form a basket. And it has a beautiful, deep turquoise blue, shiny mottled glaze. We've included a huge blow-up of Jennifer White Johnson's powerful Black Disabled Lives Matter symbol, and we've applied it directly to the wall in black vinyl. The design combines the silhouette of a raised fist, and the infinity symbol to the left represents the autism community. The symbol is about 84 inches high and 30 inches wide and has the text "Disabled Black Lives Matter" at the bottom. Jen's design is free to download from her website and has been used in many protests since the summer of 2020, when she was inspired to create it as a response to the killing of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. She works today to bring attention to the double whammy of discrimination that disabled people of color face, and especially the inequities that happen in the education and law enforcement systems. Jen is a powerful and joyful advocate for people with disabilities, and disability joy is enfolded into all of her work. Rachel Ungara's lush and painterly narratives reveal the very personal experiences she's had as someone with invisible disabilities. Her charcoal drawing called "Disabled Strong" is a work on paper which says "disabled hands, strong hands." And it's also in conversation with Jen's Black Disabled Lives Matter symbol opposite. But I'll focus on one work by Rachel, which is also a sort of self-portrait too. It portrays a common experience for people with invisible disabilities, because often they are not seen or believed. On a piece of repurposed denim about 22.5 inches high by 30 inches wide, we see a figure sitting on the floor of a bus with an older person using a cane looking on and a few surrounding figures, ignoring the person on the floor who has a sad expression and their head tilted and resting on their hand. Rachel's use of repurposed denim jeans references her physicality. They're her jeans, and we sense her presence and the indignity and ignorance people with invisible disabilities often go through. We're really delighted to have work by artists from Creative Growth, Creativity Explored, NIAD, and Ability Path. These programs originated in the Bay Area and are models for how to provide an infrastructure and community for adult artists with a range of disabilities so that they can develop their studio practice and careers. There are shows currently happening in major galleries like the White Cube and Museum of Craft and Design in San Francisco, featuring artists from these programs. Often the studio artists are practicing artists as well, and so there's a rich web of collaboration and cross-fertilization that happens here because of all this creativity, support, and sharing of technique and perspectives. We have ceramic works from creative growth artists Lawrence Choi and Cedric Johnson. Lawrence presents us with a sumptuous feast of classic American food on a plate, a big juicy steak and a couple of burgers, one of which is standing up. Choi uses gorgeous vibrant colors and shiny glazes. Cedric's work opposite is maybe another series of abstract portraits or masks. The ceramics are heavily decorated in a kind of pointillist technique of multicolored dots and marks, and the colors merge together from a distance. Sky Kubacub's dynamic project of radical visibility is represented here by video works, which describe the process they go through with a client to create a bespoke garment specifically for them that is practical, comfortable, and durable, but which is also self-expressive and transcendent. Their clients often come together for performances, which are a model of radical inclusion too. Sky uses bright colors, graphic patterns, and oversized adornments. In the video, the client wears a garment that has been specifically designed to meet their wishes and sensitivities. They wear a figure-hugging, color-blocked all-in-one with oversized bright blue chain jewelry. Sky's videos are also full of innovation in their use of really cool captions and audio description as part of the soundtrack. We also wanted to feature work by artists from the art programs that actually references disability in some way in its content. So we're delighted to have work from two artists from NIAD, Jeremy Burleson in the bigger space and two prints by Shayna Harper out in the Nook area. Jeremy is known for featuring syringes and medical devices in his graphic work and sculptures, and actually some of the ones that we wanted to use have sold. The syringe is a particularly potent image for Jeremy, and I would think it might be for everyone now as the vaccination debate continues. The vaccination issue is a traumatic one for many people with disabilities who may not be able to get vaccinated because of a medical issue. And as the pandemic continues, their frustration and confusion about the stance that some people have taken is adding to other existential threats being felt that never really seem to make it to the center of the debate. There's also an underlying resonance with earlier histories here that were equally traumatic, like the rise of eugenics, forced sterilization of people with disabilities, and the use of medications in institutions, as well as the continuing threat of rationed care that is ever present. So a small but mighty drawing is here for us to think about the many issues that the disability community are kind of screaming into the wind about. We have 3 of Jeremy's drawings in the show, including a row of 5 syringes pointing downwards and containing a blue liquid. Next to them are really lovely line drawings of cacti and figures that are some of his signature images. On the right is work by Camille Holroy, who is a creativity explored artist, who often features joyful colors and tasty cakes, Ferris wheels and balloons in her work. And here we have a range of pieces that feature the medication she takes, and they also convey something powerful from this part of her life. I'll describe a work called Anti, which features 2 medicine bottles created with bright felt markers and pen on letter-sized white paper. On the left is a bright yellow bottle, slightly behind a bright pink bottle on the right. Each bottle has a label that refers to the effect of the medicine, for instance, to calm down. These works are small and intimate and well worth spending time with. I met Lechi Chong, a legally blind painter, on some of the highly descriptive Zoom tours organized by the Blind Posse, an informal group working with local museums to make art more accessible. Catherine has 8 paintings in the show from the White Blindness Isolation Icons series, and they're placed at this end of the gallery to create a quieter space for reflection and contemplation. I only have time to talk about one piece, but each features a particular base color and a teacher or teachers that Catherine felt went with each color and with whom she found comfort over the pandemic. Cobalt Blue Virgin is 3 feet square with a 2-inch outer band of solid cobalt blue. This is the first in the series, and I have to admit that it's my favorite because I like to imagine Catherine quietly finding a way through a new technique and developing an approach that would carry on throughout the series. The Virgin and Child is a common motif in art history and represents so much about unconditional love and tenderness. Catherine has added layer upon layer of white acrylic paint over the background color so that we can just make out a mother figure holding a child. Both have halos of white, and added here and there are strips of white lace that have a triangle design that points downwards, and this too has been covered with layers of white acrylic glaze. The series seems to have been made in a devotional process, much like the approach of religious icon painters who got into a meditative state before beginning their work. Moving now to the back wall, we have black and white archive photographs by Anthony Tuzler from the historic 504 protests and takeover of the federal building in San Francisco by over 100 people with disabilities in 1977. The photos reveal how diverse the protest was, and if you've seen the Patient No More exhibit developed by the Longmore Institute on Disability at San Francisco State University, or the Oscar-nominated Crip Camp film, you'll know there's a big story of the fight for the first civil rights legislation for people with disabilities. We also have contemporary digital color photographs of the Bay Area disability art scene by Anthony, but I'm going to focus on another self-portrait now. It's another enlargement, this time from a 35mm black and white photograph, shot originally on film in the late 1970s. And it's an image of disability identity being claimed right before you. Many people are in different places as to their identity. Some of us are in denial about our impairments or our lack of hearing, or don't even think of ourselves as being disabled. Others are claiming their disability culture and identity in a loud and proud way. And this image, which is 8 feet high and 6 feet across, shows Anthony, a young white man, leaning forward towards us with his right shoulder. He wears a white mesh wife-beater top and cut-off jeans that make his leg braces clearly visible. He wants us to notice the braces and the cowboy boots with silver tips as he stares down at us, daring us to stare back. It's a provocative gaze that's almost sneering, but he wants us again to stare, and we better not look away. Another way of thinking about the work in the show is that we have pieces by older, seasoned disability artists and activists like Anthony and Bill Bruckner, but we also have a new generation of artists who are post-ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. The younger generation are less polite, less grateful, and they're occupying their space in the world because of the civil rights that previous generations had to fight for. But these are rights which can also still be taken away. So now let's consider the floor beneath us, and in the central space of the main gallery is a beautiful labyrinth created on the floor by blind interdisciplinary artist Maya Scott. It's made up of prints of one of her eyes on oval shapes, and the labyrinth itself is in the shape of an eye too. Labyrinths are not mazes. They invite you to journey into a thoughtful meditation, to take your time reaching the center and retracing your steps out again. Maya also has several colorful and playful pieces in the creative space in the lobby area that you can trace with your fingers. And she also has a tactile book out with the American Printing House with tactile labyrinth designs and a fascinating labyrinth history. Opposite, we have 3 pieces of work by Catherine Sherwood, who is a significant teacher and mentor of painting and is now retired from UC Berkeley. She's an important node in the local disability ecosystem and had a stroke at the age of 44. She reframed the way that she would work by using her left arm and began to make large pieces of work that could easily be handled, but that also referenced disability in some way and subverted art history conventions and compositions. On the left, we have a large work from the Venuses of the Yelling Clinic, and on the right, 2 healers from the Yelling Clinic. The Yelling Clinic is an artists' collective founded by Catherine and another Berkeley artist and writer, Sonora Taylor, that focuses on the intersection of disability, healing, and war. The Venus series is an ongoing project, and each one refers us back to a well-known nude created by a white male painter, essentially for what is known as the male gaze, as an object for visual pleasure. I'm going to talk about After Ingres, which has some very clever subversions of the status quo. But there is also a consistent fabrication technique that Catherine uses for the Venus series, which hints at her intent. The Venuses are all painted on the linen backs of images used for teaching art history to students at UC Berkeley. The names and marks in pencil are still visible, and so on the reverse of each Venus is a patchwork quilt of Manets and Titians and Rembrandts. In After Ingres, we have the back view of a reclining nude model, a person of color, who is also perhaps looking over their shoulder to hold our gaze. We are voyeurs, and the figure gazes back at us with a head made up of scans of Catherine's own brain. The relaxed figure we're looking at also has a black prosthetic right arm and hand and is holding a decorative orange and red fan with peacock feathers. The bottom half is a repeating pattern of red vertical wobbly lines on a cream background. And the upper background has been left blank, though we can still see the pencil marks of the art history teaching aids too. The painting uses a famous Ingres painting called Grand Odelisk as a basis for a critique of art history. We're being nudged to consider the ways that female beauty and disability are still being judged. The original Ingres painting was made in Paris in 1814, and there were jokes in the salons of the time about the extra vertebrae that Ingres' model must have had to create such a long, languorous pose. In fact, scholars have also recently confirmed that Ingres not only added extra vertebrae to her spine, but also shortened the model's right arm too. We've now magically moved to the glass gallery, which is a smaller gallery space off the main foyer. In here is an experimental installation called Future Maps by Jennifer Justice, a blind artist and assistive technology specialist who is curious about the natural environment and the many human forces and policies that can shape it. As you enter, you can hear a sound recording of birds from where Jennifer lives in Ukiah in Northern California, as well as the sounds of vibrations made by 3D printed footprints. The wall on the right has 4 small experimental line drawings, and in the back right corner is a piece called Bucket of Rain, which I will describe. It features a rusting metal circle hanging from the ceiling, and hanging from the circle are lots of thin bead ropes which have wooden raindrops at the end. Jennifer made this piece as a reaction to a Napa fire several years ago, and the wooden raindrops were turned on her own lathe. The piece itself narrowly escaped being destroyed by a fire in 2017 when it was on display at the Enchanted Hills camp run by the Lighthouse for the Blind. Sadly, the camp itself was destroyed in that fire. To the right and on the far gallery wall of the space is a machine-made 3D map. It's displayed at a slanted angle and is a tactile topographical map of the projected river levels once the Klamath River dams have been removed. Jennifer used data from an open-source online project run by the Yurok tribe in their efforts to regenerate the Klamath waterways. The map is created by 2 laser-cut blue acrylic shapes mounted on a wooden base. On the left wall is a painting on cardboard of a carrot and stick, and to the right of that is a vitrine with more wood-turned items that create a place setting with 2 tall drinking goblets, a bottle opener and a spoon. On the small wooden plate is a bright orange 3D printed footprint of a chicken. To the left of the vitrine are bright red, blue and green 3D printed footprints of pigs, cows and a rhinoceros walking up the wall. And finally, on the small back wall to the left is a banana skin flag hanging down from a black flagpole. We're now back in the foyer next to 2 works that are also in conversation with each other, a video and a print. Later today, we're excited to have a performance by Antoine Hunter, also known as Purple Fire Crow, who is an African-American choreographer, teacher, and dancer. He runs the International Deaf Dance Festival. And we really wanted to have a way for people to experience his work when he is not here. So we have a video of him of a dance called The Silence, which is 5 minutes long. It's a solo dance that incorporates ASL and dramatic movements and haunting music. Next to the monitor with Antoine's video is a work commissioned from digital artist Otis Smith by Leroy Moore on behalf of Crip Hop Nation, and it features 3 local disabled Black Panther Party members, one of whom was instrumental in having the Section 504 protests succeed because of his involvement, which brought the daily support of the local Black Panther Party, who brought hot food and other supports to keep the protest going every day for almost a month. This new artwork is from a concept by Leroy Moore and commemorates disabled Black Panthers who have been prominent in the Bay Area, posing outside the Black Panther Party office in Oakland. Clockwise from left, we have Bradley Lomax, who was in the 504 protest, Kilu Nyasha, and then Malcolm Samuels on the right. Bradley's brother, Glenn Lomax, is front right and was also a member of the Black Panther Party. There are more works in the foyer by Maya Scott that invite a sense of play and experimentation. Hanging above is one of the cubes that Maya has used for art performance pieces in the past. The hanging cube connects her work in the large gallery space to the smaller interactive works in the creative space, where you will find the Garden of Sacred Irreverence. The Garden of Sacred Irreverence is a series of 4 smaller scale labyrinths mounted on the wall and designed by Maya to be traced with a finger or a nose, or maybe with your imagination. There are 2 big, colourful, circular ones that remind me of stained glass windows, and then in the centre is a smaller labyrinth drawn in ink on a heart-shaped quarter section of a slice from a tree so that the rings are visible. Again, the labyrinth is intended as a journey into contemplation and creativity. Below is a labyrinth called Lockdown Labyrinth, made entirely from keys and also in the shape of a key. Sadly, we're coming to the end of our tour, and I want to leave you with a work in the Nook area. We have 2 prints from Naiad artist Shayna Harper with some words of wisdom about being an artist. Shayna loves to experiment with print techniques, and we're displaying 2 of her text works in the show that use letters from a variety of type styles and sizes. Her piece on the left says very simply, "Being an artist is the best feeling in the world." And on the right, her print states, "Being normal is overrated." Between the prints, we have a disability pride parade crowd of disability action figures in a vitrine. The vitrine is 3 feet wide and holds approximately 35 varied disability action figures, including Dr. X, the 3 blind mice, an African-American wheelchair Barbie, a range of figures in wheelchairs, some standing figures with leg braces and walking aids, and an action figure called Spawn leaning on his mobility aid. There's also a disabled dog that has wheels to replace its hind legs. Children seem to really love this display, and I think it speaks to the fact that disability is everywhere, and that we really are a stronger society when we practice radical inclusion. I really hope you've enjoyed finding out something of the complex joy and joyful complexity of the San Francisco Bay Area disability community.